right, and we are here on good on Jitsi, good on OBS. But all right, wow, guys, nothing better than ripping a fat dab and jamming out to some Aristia. That song was called "Purple Dream." I use it a lot in pretty much a lot of PRN stuff. But yeah, amazing music. And fun fact, I actually interviewed the vocalist Jordan Ibarra a while back on Libertarian Tech Radio. That would have been back in like 2016 or something. These dudes are cool as shit. They are. I mean, you heard the music. They're super, super talented. But when they started playing, they were like just high school friends, like 15, 16, 17 years old. So yeah, amazingly talented. And they, work in some, I guess it's a subgenre of metal. It's kind of politicore in some ways. They've got a song called "Harp," for example. Weather control, that sort of stuff. So they're awake. They're aware. Super cool dudes. I'm not even sure if that episode's still available, but yeah, if anyone's interested, let me know. I can dig up that archive. But anyway, welcome to the Vonu Podcast live here on the PAZNIA Radio Network, our weekly Self-Liberation Saturday transmission. Though I do hope you've been here since we began way back. Seems like way back at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, with Thane Riddle's Cloak and Dagger, followed by James Cordner's Voluntarist Academy. It's a wonderful Saturday here at Veritas. It's been raining all day. First good rain in a long while. I've got the side door open in the studio, and let me tell you, this fresh rainy air has really added a quite incredible relaxing effect to the day. I hope you're finding some peace and joy on this Celebration Saturday, wherever you happen to be tuning it from, or I guess building. If you're listening to this and building or doing something, hopefully you're whatever you're doing. If you want to keep up with what we're doing here on the PAZNIA Radio Network, if you'd like to host your own show here, make a donation, or view the full schedule, you can find everything via the same link, PAZNIA.com/radio. I would say the Vonu Podcast feed too, but I'm way behind on podcast archives. If you're looking for those, you'll have to head over to Rumble, Odyssey, or YouTube. Cloak and Dagger is almost always the first show you'll hear. And I definitely recommend YouTube. We won't be permitted there much longer. So yeah, obviously, go to places like Odyssey or Rumble or something like that. Hopefully, we'll have our own PeerTube instance set up at some point in the near future, and other cool solutions. But anyway, yeah, if you'd like to call in tonight, you definitely can. We'll say like a half hour into the show, give us a call. The link to call in is PAZNIA.com/call. Actually, we'll just go straight to the source here. The actual link for tonight is PAZNIA.chat/PRN. Again, PAZNIA.chat/PRN. Hopefully I don't confuse that, later on. But yeah, give us a half hour or so to, let Chris, let like our guest today introduce himself and, get into some stuff. And then, yeah, we're happy to, to hear from you. Anyway, tonight on the Vonu Podcast Live here on the PAZNIA Radio Network, I'm joined by a fellow freedom fighter who I've known for nearly a decade. I mean, I don't know if it's 7 or 8, 9 years, whatever it has been. But this is Chris Jantzen, host of the End Evil Podcast over on Mark Passio's podcast network. Back when I was younger, unmarried lad with absolutely no planned future, other than maybe van nomadism if I could afford it back then, I was lucky enough to stumble across the idea of mastermind groups. Small groups, weekly meetings, wherein we, highlighted our wins, tackled our goals, and sought out advice from folks that we trusted and appreciated. After a year or two, that petered out, and we all kind of went our own separate ways, at least to my knowledge. At least I did. But Chris and I have stayed loosely connected since then. He was a guest on this podcast a few years back, and I've been on his show too. But it's been far too long since our paths crossed, and he has a lot of really awesome stuff going on. He released a book. He's still doing the podcast. He's been putting together some putting together and or participating in some great digital freedom events, featuring names like Joey Phipps from the Library of the Untold, who was the second to last, live guest here on our Self-Liberation Saturday evening. Yeah, and obviously he's been doing a lot more. Now it's interviews like this that I really, really enjoy. It gives me a full circle reminder of kind of where I started back when LUA Radio launched on February 8th, 2015, and along with everything else that's transpired since then. Many of the things we discussed then were mostly theoretical, mesh networking, building semi-permanent autonomous zones, etc. But now we've left the realm of theory, and it's a beautiful thing. These sorts of interviews also remind me of those other principled long-term freedom pioneers. Not the folks who jumped in, did a podcast for a year or two and just went back to the servile society. No, like these other principled long-term freedom pioneers who realize that this path of liberation and consistency is ever important. Even if it comes to the points of great sacrifice, marriage, children, etc. In my current past lifestyle is like I can't fathom being in such a position and being under such immense pressure, but still holding true to what you know is right. Um, this is one of the many reasons that I'm thankful for for my wife and my situation. In our free marriage setup. Of course, no relationship is perfect, but I know for a fact, and she does too, that we would never involve the state or do anything nefarious at all. So that's good. If we've got POAs and wills and stuff, private contracts between individuals work too. Um, but in regards to self-liberation, Kyle and I, Kyle talked about this a lot. He becomes more and more right every single day. That past personal decisions can be the biggest enslaver in the present. And these are harsh truths, but it is what it is. The path of self-liberation is the path of taking responsibility for those things that you can in your life. Um, and yeah, I guess rambling aside. I guess just to bring that to a close. Yeah, many people today are enslaved by decisions in the past. I see it. See it with with many PAZNIANs. Again, this is one reason I'm so happy to have Chris here today. Life didn't necessarily work out the way that he expected, but he's taking it. He's taking it by the horns and transmuting it into something great and beneficial for himself and for humanity. At the end of the day, it's always just good to connect with a brother. So let's not waste any more time. Chris, my friend, welcome to the Vonu Podcast Live here on the PAZNIA Radio Network. How are things going? What's going on? Anyway, now that audio's here, technical issue thankfully sorted out. How are things going? What's going on this evening?
Well, it's been pretty exciting here at the End Evil studio. There's been a lot of changes in recent weeks, but a lot to talk about. It's a good time to catch up, actually.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. So I guess in most cases I would just ask, for something like this, just ask a generic question like, who is Chris Jantzen? But in this case, I guess, like I said, we know each other for a long time. We've been into these things into these ideas for a long time, much like myself. Give us a bit of insight of how you got into these freedom ideas, as well as what transpired over the past handful of years or so. A lot of very tumultuous. So yeah, I guess tell us a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's, I guess, coming to a big realization. I'm one of those people that had pretty stark awakening experience. Sometimes I call it midlife crisis. Sometimes I call it spiritual awakening. Probably both, all kind of hit me at the same time. I started looking real deep into 9/11, September 11th, back in like 2011, 2012. And then I started going through various podcasts. Someone introduced me to podcasts, and I just fell in love with podcasts. Doing maintenance work, carpentry work. At the time, I was actually working for the Superior Court of in North Bay in Sonoma.
Oh, yeah, I remember that,
yeah, and so that was kind of like when we met. And
I remember
just started.
we talked about you quitting your government job before. I remember that came up. Because we talked
That
about
was
that a lot on the podcast. Yeah, we had many conversations.
One of our episodes. Exactly. Yeah, so I talked to a lot of people in my interviews since about freedom, people in the community and such. And it seems like a lot of people always kind of came from this background of being rebellious. And I guess I was in some ways, but in terms of realizing how drastic the situation is with statism, the state government being, like one of the most primary evil aspects of our world, was a hard realization for me. And the things around 9/11, September 11th, and then that led me into looking into geoengineering and weather engineering, and really just turned my world upside down the more I thought about that and the longer I thought about that. And then meeting folks like yourself, Liberty Under Attack at that time you were doing, and various other podcasts, What on Earth on Happening, obviously turned out to be a really big, made a huge impression on my life. And just realizing that, like, my gosh, stuff is really messed up in our world. I need to be part of the change and do something about this. So that started my whole career of becoming a content creator in terms of podcasting and trying to get the message out there for people to kind of recognize what's really going on around us.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, certainly. No, that's great, and I really appreciate Mark Passio, and that was he wasn't a big part of my development. I really didn't look into this. I got into all of this through conspiracy through like 9/11 and Bill Cooper, but I very much switched like and devoted 120% of my effort to solutions. Um, so I really didn't even think I didn't look into anything beyond just like physical self liberation. But obviously with Passio and that, I guess one to kind of be a theme of tonight's discussion, I think, is spiritual self liberation. It's not just physical liberation; it's physical, spiritual, and mental. It all plays into it. It's all highly relevant. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess so yeah, that's how you got into all these freedoms, this freedom stuff, and I guess yeah, I guess when did I guess it was COVID, right? COVID was a breaking point for a lot of people, a lot of relationships, a lot of families. Something similar happened
Right.
with you around that time, right? I guess yeah, give us some context and fill us in.
Yeah. 2020 came around. That was such a strange timing for me because I was on the brink of releasing. I had been creating a 6-part series that was intended to be the launch um, to my podcast. I'd come up with this whole idea. I had once before, when you and I previously met, done this other podcast that was kind of loosely based on conspiratorial jibber jabber mixed in with making up music, which was kind of fun. That was called The Scrit
Yeah,
Show.
yeah,
But what I learned from doing that was, like you really need to have a plan if you want to go out having a podcast that reach more minds. So I came up with this whole plan to do the 6-part series. It was like a video series, put that on YouTube, and then already have like, I remember listening to Nathan Frazier's advice at the time about podcasting secrets, releasing like this whole series. And anyway, all this is just kind of coming to its fruition. I'm getting ready to put it all out when um, all this scamdemic starts hitting us in various ways.
right.
And from where I'm at in the state of mind, it's just like from day one, super obvious. Like, oh my gosh, this is some kind of combination of propaganda mixed with a false flag type real time event thing. I was seeing all the signs right away, and so I was speaking out like from the very beginning. And my ex-wife at the time was had been studying to become a nurse, and she was a nurse. And granted, she did notice a lot of inconsistencies. One of which is funny to look back at. In the beginning, they weren't wearing masks at all at Sutter, where she worked in Santa Rosa, and even months into the scamdemic, they actually weren't allowed as nurses to wear masks because they were afraid it was going to scare off their clientele. And no one was going to the hospital at all. Everybody was afraid to go. So there was these weird things that happened, but it created a huge conflict point between her and I. I refused to wear the masks from the beginning. I even made like you can look back on my website's endevil.life if people want to check it out. And if you scroll back to 2020, you'll see I always forget what I called it 15 reasons to refuse to wear a mask. And that was one where YouTube put me on timeout. They didn't quite give me a full strike, but they put me on timeout, which, it did not go against their rules. I've watched their little training video since
Oh
and
yeah, I have too.
confirmed I was good. The way I presented, I was saying, hey, this is my opinion. Here's 15 good reasons you should refuse to wear a mask. You make your own choice. It wasn't medical advice, and there was no medical advice in it. Dust masks, as I made the point in the video, were never made to be a medical device in the first place. A surgical mask is a different thing for a different reason and a different context. But anyway, yeah. Oh man, there's so much in that whole story, but I wound up splitting up from a wife of 17 years and leaving my teenage daughters home because I just could not jive with seeing my kid go to school wearing a mask. And they had these Nazi-esque rules they were going to impose where my daughter's going to be sent to a special room if she coughs on some. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not having this. But the thing is, she was all into it. And my daughters were old enough that I decided it's time for them to make their own decisions. I gave them my best advice: stay away from the needlecraft. And I wound up leaving town and starting a new life, basically, and seeing them every month since. And our relationship has been going great. But
Hmm.
yeah, I broke up with my family because of differences largely around the scamdemic.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Um, Yeah, trying to think of where to go with that. But what I will say in the meantime for the listeners is we do have, we're keep this we're at right around an hour because I think you have a stream coming up after this, if I recall from our previous conversations. So we got to keep
No,
some.
no, I'm good.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I'm good. But yeah,
Okay. 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 Cool. 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 Well, we won't rush too much then. But yeah, I guess. Oh gosh. You moved out of town. And I guess tell us a bit more about I guess what you're doing now. Tell us. I guess start with your podcast, if you would. Like, give us an update on
sure.
what you've been talking about there.
Yeah, so the podcast is in the End Evil podcast, and I'm on just about any podcast player you can find. And the website is endevil.life. And I chose to kind of base the whole podcast around this book. Um, it's written by this guy named Jeremy Locke. Nobody seems to really know who Jeremy Locke is. Maybe it's a pseudonym. Hasn't I haven't found any real confirmation on that, but it's an amazing book,
Interesting.
The End of All Evil. And I actually have that book for sale on endevil.life. If you hit the little menu in the top corner and go to the store, and but that book you can find for free. The PDF's all over the internet. If you just look up The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke, you'll find it, and you can check it out. It's a quick read, and but this book really lays it down in simple terms. Well, a different way to kind of define evil, and I think that's, to me, try to get people's attention a little bit. Like most people, if you say end evil, they think, oh, you can't end evil. Evil's like good. These are things that are, everlasting. Like the yin yang, right?
Right.
There's light and dark, right?
Dualism. Yeah.
And so what I'm doing is trying to put this in a different context and say, okay, yeah, that's true. There's light and dark. There's yin and yang. There's universal principles. Absolutely, that's true. That being said, what I'm talking about is evil in terms of us being human, in the context of us being beings that can do harm to one another and that can steal from one another, right? And that's really the point of a lot of what's going on in our life and our experience is, are we doing wrong to one another or not? Are we stealing in some form or another? And so Jeremy Locke really wraps it up good by saying evil, destruction of freedom. And I've just thought about it over and over in so many ways. That simple phrase really explains what Passio is saying so well too, is that evil's all these forms of stealing: murder, rape, trespass, coercion. You're taking something, even lying, right? You're taking the truth from someone, the opportunity of truth, robbing it from someone when you could
Mm.
be giving them the truth. It's forms of stealing. It's trying to make reality what reality doesn't necessarily want to be. It's trying to bend other minds to your will. And statism is like one of the worst viruses, disease, terrible versions of that, because it's an ongoing torture. And what can they get away with when you have these entities that become worldwide powers and can have unlimited sources of funds that can do things as heinous and wild as poisoning the whole sky of the planet, or the all the oceans of the planet, trying to control the very ozone and atmosphere and wavelengths that we think on or breathe on, right?
Hmm.
But that's the type of thing that you start finding out the more you look into things, that this leads to is people getting a hold of this ring of power of, and it all comes back to what you're saying. And that's honestly, Shane, I've always loved your work, and I've always looked up to you and what you do, because you're so solution based, pragmatic. And when we first met, you were kind of like going to school and you were questioning the colleges. Why were they like broadcasting different versions of communism? You're like, what the
Hmm.
hell? And like when you were actually reading a lot of books and digesting them, thinking about them for yourself, and then having those awesome conversations with Kyle, And that all affected my process too, hearing you guys going off on that stuff, you know. And it's hard stuff to swallow for someone I know who comes from very much outside of this field. But when you go through the progression of questioning things and really asking, okay, things are all messed up. There's these evils in the world, which is humans that are stealing from other humans, doing it in a massively cooperated, organized way globally. What do I do about it? Well, there's not a lot you can do at that point. We're already in the form of slavery. We're already prisoners in a slave system. Assuming we recognize we're prisoners, then we're no longer just slaves. Now we're prisoners. But what do? We can't just escape. It's not that easy. It's something that would require many of us recognizing and realizing this truth that we are all sovereign beings together at once in unison in cooperation, on a much larger scale than we're currently doing, to actually change the tide of reality, you know, and to actually see that what freedom might actually feel like, because we haven't actually experienced it, because we've been in some form of slavery ever since we've existed, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I know I've mentioned this on podcasts before, but it's like um, no one no one, even the most free person today, really has no. I mean, the concept of freedom like today it was so like it's I don't know like they're everyone grew up like I mean if you think about the the servile society, from birth to grave, everyone's bathing in the propaganda. Everyone's everyone is. So like what's and if it's not like it's kind of that self government aspect, where that self government isn't I don't I think that's like a that word's kind of a red herring. Self government, it's not autonomy or whatever. It's where you get the slaves to police themselves through mind control, is the way that I see it. And that's so like it's if you look at like today, like I don't know, like I guess it's hard to even define what. Well, I guess we can theoretically, but I guess practically it is difficult. I guess the best way to gauge is mean time to harassment. Thanks to Rayo, I think it's the best thing I've ever best I've ever come across. But I will say real quick, if any of the listeners, if you have something for the show, but you don't want to call in, you don't want AI to scan your voice or something, I certainly understand. You can go to xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio and make a Monero donation, and we can read that message on the show. But anyway, so that's great. The podcast is still going on. Still doing things there. But I guess there's a bigger. There are two bigger things. I guess we'll start with this one first. But you've been putting together and/or participating in some digital freedom events, Funnel 4, and I guess what's up to Funnel 5 now, or that's the upcoming one. So I guess tell us a bit about I guess some of those, if you could.
Oh yeah, that's pretty exciting. Coming from that same thought process where you and I met, of trying to start a mastermind type project. One of those groups that I got involved with early on became Freedom Under Natural Law, and we've done 4 successful online conferences. This February 21st and 22nd is going to be Funnel 5, which we're calling Ignite Hearts and Minds. The event that will spark truth, love, and freedom. And we generally have musicians playing freedom music, and then a series of presentations based on natural law, freedom, and truth, all under the idea that if we all are working internally and externally in our own lives towards freedom, that can spread and ignite other people to do so and do their self work. And yeah, pretty excited about Funnel 5 coming up. Got to start cooking on my presentation. But my biggest news is a book I recently wrote that I wanted to talk a little bit about. I don't know if that's jumping forward, but
no, go for it, man. Go for it. That was the next thing. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, people can check out freedomundernaturallaw.com to learn more about that. And yeah, as far as my work, I've had this long time dream to write a book. And my buddy Will Keller has kind of mentioned to me, he's been a fellow organizer for the funnel conferences. Like, you've talked several times, man, about writing this book. You better write this book, you know. right after the last funnel conference, another friend, Sarah Cross, was telling me about how she got her book published. And so I had a goal. I was going to do it this year. As of 2025, I was going to get this book written. And I really wanted it to be kind of like Jeremy Locke's book, The End of All Evil, just sort of a little short compendium of the wisdom that I've learned in my life, of what I would like to share with my 17-year-old version of myself if I were to meet that person on the street. Like, how could I have learned all these huge lessons that took me 30 years of hard knocks to get, and wrap it up in a bow and give it to someone 20 years ago? Maybe they don't have to go through some of that friggin' struggle I did.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what the book is intended to be. And the title points towards this deeper truth that I want to share with people, that I am changing my life by choosing to write a book called The Book That Changed My Life.
Mm.
When thought and ideas meet action is when we set an intention in our mind, and then we build ideas and hopes on that intention. And then we start actually taking actions in the world, whether it be typing on the keyboard or playing notes on your guitar or speaking into your microphone. When you start connecting these things up, that is how we manifest. That is how we change the world, and that's how we change our own life. And by changing our own life, we in effect will affect those around us, and they will change their own lives accordingly. The harder and the more we try in that effect. So I really, motivation and inspiration are what I feel like I've been driven and told deep down from my spirit to share with people. And so I try to, yeah, it's all a bitter pill. Yeah, it's all hard work. I'm telling you, in this book, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough stuff if you go down this road, just like climbing a mountain. If you're a mountain climber, it's not going to be easy to climb a mountain, but it's worth it. It's worth it to be a mountain climber. And by that allegory, I mean the mountain of your life, of getting over all the things that are holding you back from being the person that you could be, and treating people out in the outer world more and more, not in an evil manner, but in a manner that we know deep down at soul level is what's good.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, that's been, that's something that's been on my mind lately. So I've been is it's I guess back in like 2018 to 2019, I guess it was 2019, summer of 2019, I think. I for like 3 months straight, I would go to my I call it at that time a not real day job at the distillery. I'd get home by like 1 or 2, and I'd just sit outside and write until it got dark, until I went to bed. And there is something to be said about like obviously concentrated intention, and like when like there's nothing more like I guess to me like there's nothing more like that requires more concentrated energy than writing. Um, and this is and I guess the other part of it too is that it's one reason I'm really into like freedom fiction or agorist fiction or whatever. It's one of the things we specialize in at Libertarian Type Publications, and it's because like there's that notion of like art imitating life or life imitating art, and if the answer is yes, obviously, but there's also that concentrated attention part of it too. That like I mean, mind precedes reality. Like the thought has to come before the thing in physical reality. So it's like I think there is something magical to fiction, and especially in terms of like in terms of like the stuff that we discuss. But anyway, any thoughts on that, or we can move forward if not. But I want to give you an
Oh,
opportunity.
absolutely. That brought so many thoughts to my mind. Well, first, how focused you've always been ever since I've known you. It's always been pretty impressive. I remember in our masterminds, you're always listing all the things you got done each week. And I'm like, dang. And even looking back, like some of the things I wanted to do way back then, like actually get a product on my website. I'm just getting to like whatever you said, 8 years or a decade later. Like I feel pretty slow. But I had my own paths I was going down of learning and discovery, and but no, you've always been impressed to me. Um, but like moving like an arrow and choosing, having a direction leads you to all these wonderful things on the way, and synchronicities happen,
Right.
and amazing things happen, and life unfolds in ways you would have never dreamed of when you do find some meaning and purpose in life. And I think that's the overriding win, even though there's so much struggle. Like I said, it is a mountain climb,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing I've realized is it is like mental gymnastics. Like, for instance, philosophy. I've got a book by Immanuel Kant last year, and it's just started reading through it, and it's like, my gosh, like you get a few paragraphs in, it's like, man, this is thick, heavy stuff. I got to think about that one paragraph.
Yep.
It hurts the brain, at first. And I've come to realize that a lot of the stuff that we take for granted and talk about, those of us that have already studied a bunch of philosophy and looked at a bunch of different, Lysander Spooner and some different writers and speakers on all these topics and statism, we have all these nuanced. But for someone who this is all kind of new to, it's mental gymnastics. It's like crazy complex, deep ideas that require exercise. It does really take time to build up our fortitude to be able to think these thoughts through, logically, step by step, to like trivium style, and come up with some really good, confident, that place where you can like move like an arrow and have meaning in your life because you've really thought it out
Hmm.
carefully. And I don't know, something you said really made me think about how much of a struggle it's been to learn to think and to have a thought process that actually goes through a progression,
Oh no, no, for sure. And I guess to bring it into the physical realm, I mean, you're basically you're reprogramming your mind. You're disconnecting the those neuronal pathways of programming. That we've whatever those are. And however long that's been. For me it was basically 20 year 18, 19, 20 years. Um, of like unconscious programming. And then having to untangle that. I guess remove those neural pathways and recreating them. And yeah, it takes a lot of time, and especially, and I'm thankful for. Well, I guess it's like I guess it's getting harder to find information, but I guess what I'll say is like I'm thankful, like from like 9/11 on. Pretty much everything is out there. A lot of the truth is out there. It's super hard to come across, and you do have to like it's like it's the information's out there, but it's the other part of it too is 50% of what you come across is maybe truth, and 50% of it's total bullshit. So yeah, it's like, or I guess there's probably some nuance there, but you kind of get what I'm saying. There's the,
Oh man,
there's it's a
I've always
it's a
thought
tough process.
since like 2012, 2013, with all that talk around that back then about the Mayan calendar, and that was kind of when I was really coming to realize a lot of things. And
Yeah,
I was
from
looking
from
into
what you
that
said,
Mayan
that like
calendar
20
thing.
2012 was when I started looking at 9/11. It was probably around that time. Um,
I've met a lot of people who've said that, who I've interviewed over the years, and I think there was this sync thing happen in the universe where a lot of us were like, wait a minute, you know, and I think, obviously it wasn't the end of the world, the Mayan calendar. No, it's talking about like a wheel
yeah.
turning and looking at things from this different perspective. Maybe.
Yeah, no, it's possible. I've thought about that too. Like there were some strange things that happened around that time in my life. Like the year before, I had a grand mal seizure at a metal show, and was unconscious for 2 days,
Oh
in the
man, that's
hospital.
scary.
And I got in. I haven't dug into a lot of this stuff as of late, but there's a guy, Howdy McCoskey, and he talked about like initiation by illness or whatever. And after, like before that, I'd kind of been like, I don't know. I'd kind of been, not going down a necessarily great path, and wasn't, super selfish, kind of an asshole, as most people are, most men are, when they're 17 or 18. But at least from my, it's what's been reported to me. Um, but no, but after that, like, no, something happened. I don't know if I had an out of body experience, and I remember something. Been trying to work through that, but I have no idea. But yeah, it's something, something might have happened there too. But anyway, that's personal. Don't know.
Hey, one thing I really appreciated about a lot of the podcasts I listen to, like when some people do get personal and tell you like, hey, here's what I'm going through in life, it like makes it more real. It's like, and that was one thing I loved about podcasting too. It could be just any guy, in his garage or in his car or whatever, or gal, anybody could make their own show. And
Hmm.
a lot of times you could tell and feel from the way someone's doing it that they're not supported by some corporate structure. They don't have a bunch of money. They're just doing something because they really do care about it. And that to me is like one of those tools of discernment when, like you said, what I was trying to get to that I forgot to say was that I feel like that period of time was like the opening of Pandora's box,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
just like that allegory. And all of a sudden now it's like the dust settling. There's been enough time since the opening of Pandora's box back in 2012, 13, with the internet, everything was out there. You could find anything, you just type it in. But since then, yeah, it's all kind of been filtering, and whoever it is, the evil ones in the realm are going around trying to scoop up anything that's shiny that might get them in trouble, right?
Hmm.
Or, we kind of saw that in our experience. We saw that explode, and then now it's changing. But it's all still out there. And it's just so much, like you're saying, BS, that now it's more about developing the tools of discernment to be able to seek out and find things that are valuable and that are worth looking for,
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess along that same line of thought, and it's a question I outlined, but it's a good one to transition to. We've got another topic or two, but it's a very good transition point. But so I guess what sorts of topics are of most interest to you at the moment? I guess anyone in particular, any schools of thought, truth pursuits, etc. And I guess the what I'm getting at here is like one of the ways I've found very helpful. Is I have a mystery school mentor, which helps. But he turned me on to someone, G.I. Gurdjieff, and I was turned on to Walter Russell before him. But folks like that, where
hmm
like where or like a Rudolf Steiner type, something like that, where
Yeah.
like it's impossible to know what the percentage of accuracy is necessarily, because I mean it takes a whole lifetime of study to even like even understand. I guess probably
Right.
to fully understand and take in everything that they've said and experienced. So like, or is there anyone like for you? I guess to rephrase the question here, is there anyone for you like Gurdjieff and Russell are like day to day? Like I've got Russell's posters all over the house. His periodic table of elements. Gurdjieff books are always like I always keep them right around. I've found that I read a lot of books in the first like 4 or 5 months, and then I'm way too busy in the summer to do it. Like I guess winter reading is when I read. But is there anyone like that for you that's like again, like in terms of like verifying truth, it's kind of impossible to verify that, but resonance is a big thing for me. Like you can kind of listening to somebody, like there are times like I get 30 seconds or a minute into a podcast and it's like nope, can't do it. Just something's off. So like, is there anyone like that for you that you've been immersed in for any time? I guess Jeremy Locke might be one, but it sounds like there might only be one book. But is there anyone like that?
Oh man, for a while I've just listened to so much books over the years. I did a lot of Audible, but in more recent times, my life has just become so physical and experiential. I haven't been doing much any reading or listening for the past year and a half. But what's really interesting is the on the physical world, I through a strange turn of events wound up getting into training with self-defense, martial arts,
Nice.
which for me, like you're saying, coming from the philosophy background, and like I really loved Rudolf Steiner, by the way, and looking into Rosicrucianism, I
Mm-hmm.
found to be particularly interesting. Um, but coming out of all that philosophy, and then like also the freedom stuff, it kind of pushed me into the world of realizing that like, okay, in the physical world, how far can I actually go? Am I just pontificating all this stuff? But in the real world, when something goes wrong, what am I going to do? Call the police? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like if
Right.
I'm in a tough spot, and well, eventually the onus, the responsibility comes back to me. And so I wound up being in this interesting position where, because of 2020, I was with this group of people and we were all kind of doing like a freedom cell type thing. We had some meetings every week. It was like 10 families involved. And we were like doing skill sharing. Like we were making lists of what skills we all have so we could share. And the one guy had a whole history of being like a bodyguard, self-defense guy. And so he started doing this little Tai Chi and like gun defense class and got me started on a few things. And everybody else eventually kind of petered off the class, and then he was going to move away. And he said, I don't want you to stop training. You're doing really well. Let me introduce you to this other guy. And he brought me out and introduced me to this guy out in the woods who turns out to be just amazing self-defense, martial arts, self-protection guy who has studied this stuff his whole life and trained with many famous people in the, many well-known martial artists, let me put it that way.
Okay.
And been getting this like really close one-on-one every week, self-defense, hands-on training, weapons training, stick fighting, knife fighting, and restraints, disarms, like amazing. Like, and this has become part of my mental, not just physical practice, but mental, like trying to understand how to deal with aggression, how to respond before something gets worse, how to deal with my own temperament. All these things has been quite. I mean, I know I'm not exactly answering your question, but I guess
That's good. Keep rolling. Keep
that's
that.
what I'm most excited.
Self-defense was the next
right
segue. Yeah, the
Yeah.
next topic. So yeah, we can get into it, and to be weird, like I guess to read a script or something cliche. Because I wrote up something last night because it's not. I was thinking about the self-defense thing, and I was going to introduce a topic some way, but I think like in the terms of self-defense, this is important, but yeah, on Liberty Tech Radio, way back in the day, we made it a priority to discuss use of force issues. Like we talked about assassination politics, we talked about argumentation ethics from Hans Hermann Hoppe and his concept of dialogical estoppel that, once someone has violated the autonomy of someone else, they can't claim responsibility, they can't claim autonomy over themselves. Kind of the ethical, I guess the ethical or the ethics sort of argument for it. So like we've gone super deep into a lot of these use of force issues. Violence and coercion it exists in the world, and to not defend your person, property, and family is a disgrace and biggest sin. Sin in this case literally being defined as missing the mark, or my preference, falling short. That is falling short of your responsibility for defending the body that's been granted to you in this incarnation. So I guess this, I remember one podcast in particular, where it was right around the time of Brexit, and everyone was like all gung ho about secession again, and like we did like a 2-hour episode, and I had Gary Hunt on too to discuss the legal. He's a constitutional scholar of sorts, uncredentialed scholar, I'll say, to talk about secession. And we honed in on Texas specifically because Texas, everyone talks about Texas seceding, but in Texas, as of like 8 years ago, there were so many federal and military installations in Texas, and I was trying to make the point that if you actually are arguing for secession, like, are you ready to pick up the guns? like that's what it comes down to. Are you ready for that? Because people don't think about that. Like, what do you think the federal go? Oh, well, Texas is ceding. I guess we'll just cede that. What, like $100 million worth of federal military installations, whatever. Throw out a random number. I have no idea, but it's not cheap, right? Nothing the federal government ever fucking does is cheap. So yeah, it's like so yeah, and I guess the other part of this too around Brexit, it's like the other and obviously like begging those who falsely imagine themselves to be rulers to secede like politically, is just it's not gonna work. I'll put it that way. But I guess this brings to mind, and I haven't talked about this. I don't talk about recent events on Vonu Podcast or anything, but the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't know much about the dude, other than when I was in higher level indoctrination. Turning Point USA posters were like the only semblance of like sanity, going through the halls of Illinois State University. So, he seemed like a good dude. Like it's like the way I just like the label I put on most of these folks. Most of these folks are just like a generic Christian conservative. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I interact with them every single day, and they're great people. But they're just programmed in one way, in one direction. But I guess anyway, to get to the point, obviously no non-coercive human being deserves that. Like I shouldn't have to say that. Like it was, obviously there are a lot of theories going around disregarding all of that though to get to the point of this self-defense topic. They stopped showing war footage soon after 9/11 because could moral human beings, have a serious reaction to seeing that violence outright. It's why like Manning, like when this stuff is leaked, they don't like it that much. They don't like their atrocities to be broadcast on TV anymore. higher tendency for someone to be anti-war, and that's definitely not what they want. Um, but yeah, so like the positive, I guess the positive I see here, like it's a reminder, and obviously there's some, like, there may be a trauma-based mind control angle to this too, that like I'm not overlooking, so I'm not overlooking that, but just in terms of the self-defense thing, like being reminded that like it's an important idea to defend, like home, hearth, and community is like, yeah, it's a good thing that was brought to the forefront, regardless of how it was brought about. And I'm trying to look on the the glass half full type of thing here. Because yeah, like there's Bill Cooper talked about it in the '90s. Like there's been like civil wars coming, and like the negative aspect of that is many right wingers were basically calling for like hangings in the streets of like leftists, and it's like, well, I guess I guess we're kind of getting into this. I guess it's good that the idea is being introduced, but this is kind of maybe a little scary. But anyway, I said a lot there. Yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, and so many people are looking at things from a Hollywood point of view at this time in history where, what do you say? Hard times make easy people, soft people, right? People become very soft in the time we're in, making these big claims, and making really big deal. I mean, look at this. I mean, like you said, didn't even heard of this person's name before. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about this person's name who got shot. I'm thinking to myself, how many kids probably got kidnapped today in the United States? How many humans got trafficked from, the borders of this country and other countries around ours? How many humans are being treated like cattle in some other smaller third world country right now by our government? Supposedly our, I say that in quotes because I don't call it mine. I didn't ask for it or create it, and I've been trying not to contribute in that type of function for a long time. And it's like, where are we actually putting our energy? Like, are we just picking the random name and face that everybody's talking about right now, or are we recognizing that that represents probably hundreds of little children that got mistreated today? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Where's our attention and time going, and why? And how productive is it to get caught in the lamestream? We're just getting tossed around like the waves in the sea by whoever's got the money to put the big names on the TV. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to say if somebody got shot, that is terrible, right? But is it really someone we know? Is it really something we're going to be able to do something about, or is it something that everybody's just going to talk about at work tomorrow and then go on about their business?
That's exactly what it's turned out to be, pretty much. Yeah, it seems like. But
and
yeah,
then
you're right,
creating these deep emotional divides between people that see it differently, and then talking about it at the coffee table. Oh, so and so said that Kirk, what's his name, Trump, Eddie Kirk, ate a cookie today. It's like, whatever. Now all those minds are all kind of set against each other in the context that was created by this lamestream propaganda machine. So yeah, I mean, like, I agree with you. Like, we try to find the silver linings in all these various things going on around us, and I try to keep my focus and mind on like all the children, all the kidnapping, all the human trafficking is one of the things I use to drive my mind towards getting back to podcasting, getting back to talking about truth, finding out really what matters the most, which is our meaning in life and our purpose, and understanding the difference between right and wrong, and trying to walk that line as best we can in a very, very topsy-turvy, upside-down realm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that being said, like, if someone shoots you, there's really not a whole lot you can do. It doesn't matter. You could be the most awesome martial artist in the world. If someone walks up behind you and pulls the trigger, there's nothing you can do at that point, But there is a lot we can do to be prepared for a lot of different scenarios and situations. And as my self-defense teacher puts it, the question for the listener, whoever's listening, is, whose job is it to protect your life? Whose job is it to protect the lives of the innocent children and family members around you? If you have to really ask yourself that question, whatever your beliefs may be about various religious institutions or government institutions, at the end of the day, whose job is it to take care and protect your own life?
Yeah. So I'll add, I guess, an example here from PAZNIA, Vonu Fest. Well, beyond Vonu Fest. But we've got a pseudonymous Pat Henry, who he's been a firearms instructor for basically ever. He every time he comes, he brings Tanner out. We have some explosive gun fun. It's a great
Oh,
time,
that sounds
including
fun.
including I think last time me and him trained,
Last
I shot
time?
like the last time he and I trained, which would have been Vonu Fest, I guess maybe Vonu Fest last year. Like 500 rounds in 3 hours pistol training, 9
Oh
millimeter.
my gosh.
So yeah, pretty intense, and even like like mobile, like shooting from the back of the rhino. Fun stuff,
Wow.
fun stuff. And yeah, obviously it's I don't he lives he doesn't live in the state. He only usually comes out once or twice a year. Um, but yeah, anytime he comes around, I make sure to try and get something in with him, even if it's like an hour, just as like a refresher, to make sure the form and all is right. But no, like, and that's something we've offered. Yeah, at every Vonu Fest that he's at, there's always some shooting. So always some training and stuff. So no, I'm with you. I think it's critically important. It's critically important, and I guess just getting back to general servile society and kind of again, like the reason these things are so traumatizing for some people to see now is the violence they see, if they aren't desensitized by by movies and such. It's oh, I'm just looking around. I lost my train of thought. But that's okay. That's okay. Um, that is okay. I was going to close out a loop there and get on to move on to something else. It's an idea that popped into my head, that when you mentioned earlier your, I guess, construction experience and all, because this has been I guess one of the reasons I've been reading as much, and I guess doing some things, is that I've been doing construction, working for a guy, doing construction, for the past 3 or 4 months.
Cool.
And like, it's not like, obviously 3 or 4 months ain't shit, and like it's a lifetime, a trade is a lifetime sort of thing. But it's been really huge, and I guess kind of synchronistic in a way. I'll keep details out of it, but some folks came out last, I guess it was so early September. The guy had been he'd been around intentional communities and built like composting outhouses and such, and he was gung ho to take on the project, and something and got started on it and had to leave pretty quick. So like a year ago I would have been fucked. I would have been totally fucked. But like again, like there's a million little details that I don't know about construction, but just like speaking in terms of like the trivia method, like it's just like there was there are a million grammar points, and all it takes from then is just coming up with the solution. And we came out with a really nice, the toilet's not done. We prioritized we ordered a porta potty and prioritized the outdoor shower. And the outdoor shower works great. I think it looks pretty damn good because all the wood we used was yeah, that's true. All of the wood we used, all the metal sheeting. There was some stuff we had to buy, but most of it was made with with stuff on the property. So it
Nice.
was a cool little first construction project, and now I'm kind of like gung ho to just keep building,
That's
and
awesome.
kind of do it
Well,
right.
feel free to hit me up if you ever need some carpentry construction advice. That's my gig.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, like I see so much value. No, I see a lot of value. Like Joey Phipps, for example, he's a tradesman. I don't know. I think what
Yeah,
he's
Glazier, I believe. Yeah.
yeah. And that's what he's done for, I guess what he's doing and always done.
Yeah,
So like
that's cool. You
there's something,
interviewed Joey too. Right on.
yeah, and he was gonna come out. He intended to come out to Vonu Fest, because he lives
No way.
he's like an hour and a half away from me. He's not far
Dude, I'm
not far
gonna
away.
make it. I think next year I want to make it a priority. I want to make it to Bonnie Fest.
You should, man. You should. But yeah, he was gonna, like, I'm a metal drummer, and he was gonna bring out his
No way.
guitar, and we were gonna jam. And like I reached out the week of, and he was like, oh shit, like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. Like, but yeah, he wanted to. So like, yeah, next time, hopefully, next Vonu Fest he'll come out. And he'll be, lots of stuff. Like, he was gonna give a talk or a workshop or something, and yeah, we're gonna do some jamming. Because I haven't jammed with anyone. It's been probably like 2017 or 2018 since I've actually jammed with with anyone. And it would be a
Oh
different
my gosh.
experience jamming with Joey.
That's crazy because I've been just having like a little revival with my guitar and songs and stuff. My old time friend I used to do music with has been working with me recently, and we busting out the guitars and the drums and stuff, and it's just been like, wow, I haven't done this for so long. It's so funny that you would bring it up in that
Yeah.
way.
No, and it's interesting too because my mystical mentor is a metal guitarist too, and Joey was the one that
Wow.
mentioned it. He was like, "Well, we should start a band." And I was like, "Motherfucker, right? Let's do it."
Yeah, I love his music. I
Oh,
think it's
it's
great.
great. No, like I jam. I should jam more of it. But
Avoid
I only
stairs
have
back. I love that name
yeah.
too.
I only have Carnet. Carnet's my favorite one. It's a nice. Sometimes I'll toss it on as like the outro song, like the 9 or 10 minute outro song.
Right, right.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. He's a one man. Not I appreciate it so much because his production quality is so high. But
I like that track you were
yeah,
playing in the beginning of the show too. That was pretty sweet.
yeah, the Aristia. Yeah, they're great, but they're definitely not as much into. Yeah, they're definitely not as far as. Well, I guess I can't really speak to that. I guess that's what I'll talk to Jordan Navarro when he's like 21. So, who knows what he's up to at this point? But no, Joey's Library of the Untold is the YouTube channel we're talking about. If you check out the interview
Yeah,
I had with him,
definitely worth checking out.
it's amazing. I think he releases like a super high quality video every Friday. I think it is, but there's so much great
At
stuff
least
on there.
it seems like one a month on the big
Once a
ones,
month.
maybe.
Okay, gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
think. I don't know that it.
Maybe
I
it's
can. It's hard for me to keep up.
yeah. I've actually gotten like a month or two behind on his stuff, but that's okay because if I get any time, well, I work out in the homestead. I've got hours to listen. Um, but
Yeah,
no,
like
there
when
was
you have construction to do on your own place and your own show to create, it's like sometimes it's hard for me to even find time to listen to stuff the way I'd like to.
yeah. No, the intake's definitely slowed down. It's more about output now.
Yep,
Many ways for sure.
many respects.
So yeah, I guess we'd be going for about an hour. We don't really, I don't really have too much more. There's plenty more we can discuss, but I'll mention here for anyone listening. Again, xmrchat.com/PAZNIA radio if you got a message before we close out. You can also give us a call if you got a question. You want to just drop in, share a personal experience or whatever the hell it is. We don't care. PAZNIA.com, or actually, sorry, PAZNIA.chat/PRN. Again, PAZNIA.chat/PRN. That'll drop you into our self-hosted Jitsi platform, and you just have to modify audio settings and start talking. But yeah, man, it's been great to reconnect. I guess was there anything else that we missed that has been top of mind for you that you'd like to discuss before? Yeah, give another
No,
opportunity.
man, we talked about everything. I was pretty fired up. I just wanted to tell people about my book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I forgot to mention Will Keller, who I mentioned, wrote the preface to my book about the Renaissance man, and I thought he did a pretty nice job on that, an awesome bang-up job. And people could check that out on endevil.life, and then there's little tabs in the corner where you can find the store. And so, yeah, thanks so much, Shane, for having me, and we'll get together again before long. I'll have you on my show or vice versa, and I'm always like great to have you out there, another beacon, a strong beacon of light and truth. And I'm very proud to call you a good friend. Thank you.
Hey man, I appreciate that, brother. I really do. And no, I feel the same about you. No, it's like I said early on. There's not, I from I communicate with a lot of people, interviewed a lot of people, from February 2015 on through 2017. I had two live shows a week, essentially. So I talked to pretty much everyone in the libertarian anarchist community, and most of them have dropped out. They don't do anything anymore. I don't know,
Right.
like and it's not to say they're not still, on their own spiritual, mental, passive self-liberation. They might have just, gone dark, which as a privacy-minded folk, I appreciate, I respect, but a lot of them just dropped out. It's kind of like that controlled schizophrenia that Rio talked about. Like, they get into it, they realize how hard it is, and they just sink back into the system because it's easier and more comfortable. Or speaking back to the
Yeah.
personal decisions things, it's like it made it more difficult for me because like I didn't have like 10 years of, as I was going to go like a 4-year university for genetics or something early on. And, I probably could have made good money, but I would have been so indoctrinated and so programmed. It'd be a huge opportunity cost. But, I came into it, very, very early on into these ideas. Again, like 2011, 2012, I was like, 18, 19, 20, whatever old I was back in those days. But, like, it's very easy to just drop out. So I appreciate folks like you and and not only pursuing those paths, but then also feeling the need to I guess do the rhetoric portion of the trivia method and try to talk about it and share the ideas. So no, it's great. It's definitely great to reconnect and help. We do it more often. But yeah, anything else before I close her out? I don't think we'll have any callers. I'll refresh XMR chat once more, but I don't think we'll have anything. So we might be wrapping up.
No, that's all good. Thanks so much, Shane. Much appreciated, man.
Hey, cheers,
Good
brother.
chat.
Yeah, for sure. So for everyone
All
else,
right.
thank you, Chris. Yeah, you can drop out if you
We'll be
like.
in touch.
I'm gonna close out, but yeah, thank you, brother. Until next time. But as for the rest of you, Celebration Saturday will continue for a little bit longer. Not live, but we'll have plenty more for you. I gotta pull up Zara Radio and actually figure out what we got here. So we got a couple programming notes. And then we'll close out with some Bill Cooper. It's one of my favorite clips from Bill Cooper. It's called Knowing Where You're Going. And from what Chris and I talked about tonight, I think it's kind of fitting. I kind of had a feeling it'd be a good fit. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in. PAZNIA.com/radio is the main link for everything PAZNIA Radio Network related. The last thing I'll mention is we've got a new release via PAZNIA. That's PAZNIA.com/calendar. And we actually have... we actually have a... close out Jitsi real quick. We actually have... let's see if I can pull up the ad. It'll skip through, but you'll be able to see the calendar. It's pretty big. It's a big, good sized calendar. Freedom holidays are in there, so like Labor Day is Agorism Day. We replace the status holidays with freedom holidays. There's some other stuff in there too on the calendar. And then the pictures are great. There's some that are very entertaining, comical, some that are serious, some that are educational, whatever. But there's a theme for every single month based on the holidays. Like there's a raw milk day and there's a cool picture there. But anyway, PAZNIA.com/calendar, or just go PAZNIA.com/shop to check out everything that we have available. Honorary stakeholder memberships are available there too. And if you want to make a one-time donation via Bitcoin, Monero, or Fiat, that is available too. But with that, I will turn you over to PAZNIA deprogramming. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please enjoy as we close out.
You're listening to the PAZNIA Radio Network.
While infrastructure costs for the PAZNIA Radio Network aren't exorbitant now, there are some costs. It will also increasingly demand more time as we move towards longer transmissions and more transmissions. If you'd like to help cover current costs and even the expansion of our efforts, please visit PAZNIA.com/shop. There, you can make a one-time Fiat, Bitcoin, or Monero donation. You can become a stakeholder, and you can even order some one-of-a-kind PAZNIA merch, ranging from shirts to hats to flags, all the way to beach towels. Again, that link at PAZNIA.com/shop. Cheers from the Free Republic.
Now that the technological foundation is laid for the PAZNIA radio network, we are now ready to start building out a regular and more frequent transmission schedule of self-liberational media. Do you want to host your own show on the PAZNIA radio network? Do you already have a show or podcast that you would like premiered or replayed during our transmissions? Something else? Reach out to Coordinator Rayo to discuss details. Email coordinator@paznia.com. Again, coordinator@paznia.com. See you in the second realm.
This is the basic law of life, and dear listeners, it is spiritual in its nature. If man failed to do everything in his power to protect his life, as a result of such neglect lost his life, then the destiny for which the soul came to earth would end there. Without life, a body or medium to function through, spiritual attainment would be impossible, ladies and gentlemen. Spirituality would then be forfeited. You see, if man's life was threatened without cause on his part, and he failed to do everything in his power to prevent death, he would then be guilty of 3 actual crimes. He would first of all permit the enemy to commit murder. Next, he would be committing suicide by failing to protect the most precious possession given to man by his Creator. And worst of all, he would end whatever his destiny might be, the purpose for which body, mind, and life had been given to him. And I believe it's to learn something. In one respect, man is forced to be a warring, not a murdering creature. And I might inject here that the 10 Commandments does not say, in its original form, thou shalt not kill. It says, ladies and gentlemen, and you can check this, if you wish, go to the original Hebrew and Greek, it says, thou shalt not murder. So in one respect, man is forced to be a warring, not a murdering creature. From his birth, the law of self-preservation forces him to be on guard against every inimical force attempting to destroy him by one means or another. He must be on the alert to prevent man, natural forces, or his own carnal desires to betray him into acts of degradation. Man is a warring creature. But his war, I tell you, his war is an honorable one. It is one of protection. First himself, so that he may protect those he is responsible for, but in doing so must not take unfair advantage of others, nor be guilty of unrighteousness. The nature of this was and is actually spiritual. It is the battle of righteousness against evil. It is a war biblically spoken of as taking place in heaven because it is waged within man's spiritual nature. He fights to fulfill destiny and to finally create heaven on earth for himself and others who follow. By the war of righteousness, wherein there is no selfishness, he attains the consciousness which makes him a man, knowing both good and evil, having chosen good to attain the promised sonship. Notice, you must choose. You must choose. Each and every one of you listening to this broadcast tonight must choose, and you must choose very quickly. You might ask, is there actually a need for some form of evil in the life of man? Was this, together with some form of fear, ordained in the beginning? And I say nothing has been ordained, but if the divine law is to be fulfilled in the life of man, then it is certainly necessary that he, according to sacred concepts, become a crusader in God's cause, and not exist as a negative, effortless, uncreative, unproductive creature, a leech, a parasite upon the rest. The first command is that he must become a man in the true sense of the term, and this implies that he must prepare himself to meet the enemy that is ever alert to destroy the best that he has created. He must meet evil as the soldier meets the enemy. Doing this in the righteousness of his conscience neutralizes fear. Many of you call and ask me, Bill, aren't you afraid? My answer has always been and always will be no. No, no, and no. For I know from where I have come, and I know where I am going. I know who I am, and I know that I possess a soul. I fear the actions of no man. I fear the judgment of no man. I fear only the judgment of my God. And I know that if I am doing what is right, I need not ever fear that judgment. And therefore, I am not afraid.